half of the session. It's my pleasure to introduce speakers and evaluators tonight. Chin will be playing the role of timer, and Glenn will be the master evaluator for all the evaluations and for the session. So I would like to say a quote which is said by Albert Einstein: the only source of knowledge is experience. So what I would like to point out here is we will be having an exciting session with all the experienced speakers and evaluations tonight. So it will be more than an educational session for all the beginners. So let us make a benefit of all the speeches and evaluations. Our first speaker for tonight is Kim Taylor. Kim Taylor will be giving a speech on her presentation mastery pathway, level 1. Objectives is to present a speech on any topic and receive feedback and apply feedback to our second speech. So please welcome Kim Taylor on the title A Second Chance. A Second Chance by Kim Taylor.
She was majestic. She was chestnut, deep chestnut colour. She had the deepest, most gentlest eyes could have ever looked into. She towered above me, this far above me. The back was there. This was my first meeting of Eliza, a thoroughbred racehorse. Eliza was at the Rob Price stables at Camberwara, and she was destined for greatness. She was destined to win the Golden Slipper. Her bloodline spoke of Golden Slipper winners. Her dam and her sire were Dan Zero and Seaboy. She's a fast girl. So she was trained to be fast. She was trained to win that race. $3.5 million. She was up at 3 a.m. racing her heart out. She was in the water. She was in the turning circle with other horses. She was pushed from pillar to post. She was put in the racing stalls, jockey on her back, different jockey each time she raced. And guess what Eliza did? She had a different idea. She would throw the jockey off her back. She would get out of the enclosure that she was in. She would jump the fences. And she did this about 3 times at 3 race meets. So the stables said out. After $75,000 as a 1-year-old racehorse, $75,000 worth of training, her career was ended. At the same time, I was walking through Bunnings, looking for some pot plant, some potting mix, and I ran into a friend who was a horsey friend. And I was with my husband, Kelvin, and we said, we're ready for a horse. If you know anybody. We had 50 acres, not a lot of cash. If you know anyone, we're looking for a horse. So that was on Sunday, the 9th of December 2019. So Tuesday, the 10th of December, I get this message on my phone. Hi, are you available to look at a horse tomorrow after lunch? I have 2 available for you. Glenys. I'm at work, Kelvin's in Sydney. I'm going, a horse? I've never had a horse. I've never owned a horse. I don't know how to ride. I don't know how to look after a horse. I've got land. So I ring Kelvin. He goes, okay, maybe go and have a look. The second message on the phone is, one's at Camberwarra, it'll be going to a can, so need to look soon. That's Eliza. She's going into a canning factory, the Doggers. I've got to look at the horse. I've got to look at Eliza. So I went the next day and I looked at Eliza and I just said, yes, she's coming home. She's going to have a forever home. And so she arrived on the Saturday, 14th of December. A week later, I've got 2 racehorses, 600 to 800 kilos of pure muscle, 8 legs, standing in the paddock next to my house. What have I done? My rescuer self came out. I couldn't help myself. So here we are. We have these 2 racehorses, but Eliza is my topic for second chance, because Toastmasters, Eliza has gotten a second chance because her destiny was not in racing. Her destiny is for something else. So when we first started looking after Eliza, we actually had to catch her, and we couldn't because she was an anxious girl. She'd been traumatised by the racehorse training, and she had a biology of anxiety. So we couldn't catch her. We had a farrier try and get her shoes off and trim her feet. He couldn't catch her, couldn't get her. Round and around the paddock she ran. Round and round the farrier ran after her. We called the vet. The vet couldn't catch her. He had a lasso. What am I going to do? So we called the racehorse trainers, and they did a thing called Join Up, and it was amazing, which I don't have enough time to tell you what Join Up is, but it's basically getting the horse's trust and talking in their language and helping them feel safe. So Join Up was a profound learning experience for us to help us to know how to relate to horses, and there's a whole lot of behaviour and language that you need to learn to talk to a horse. So, for instance, you don't look at them eyes front, shoulders square, it's too confronting. You go up to a horse like this. Hello. Hello. And you don't look, you look away. But you might edge a bit closer with your head rope and your head stall, just as an example. So we've learnt a lot about horse language, horse speak. So we caught her, we were able to vet her, and then she got a foot abscess, so I was standing under a 600 kilo animal wrapping her feet, so she started to trust me. I had not had a horse before, so this is a new learning curve. So all the different things that you need to do with horses, I'd started to learn how to do. And we thought, right, she's just going to have a forever home here. Is there going to be a destiny? How do we exercise her? How do we lunge her? So finally, in the last 2 months, we've had a wonderful horse whisperer trainer, Vanessa Harper, come, and she has taught us many wonderful things about how to manage, how to handle Eliza, and she has settled down. She's a different girl, and we're hoping that she'll be a candidate for equine therapy to help people with their mental health. So Eliza has had a second chance. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thanks, Kim. That was a wonderful speech, and I really appreciate your choice of bringing Eliza home and taking care of her. That was a great job. Thank you. Our second speaker for tonight is Linda. Her pathway is presentation mastery, level 2. The objective is, the purpose of this project is for the member to deliver a speech with awareness of intentional and unintentional body language, as well as to learn, practice, and refine how she uses non-verbal communication when delivering a speech. The timing for the speech is 5 to 7 minutes. Sorry, I forgot to mention during Kim's speech. Chin, green on 5 minutes, and amber on 6 minutes, and red on 7 minutes. Evaluator for Linda's speech will be Rebecca Cooper. Please join me in welcoming Linda. Bubble blast as Linda. Linda as bubble blast.
Has your funny bone been tickled with all the talk of travel bubbles? New Zealand and Australia has a travel bubble going on, and we have been closed up in this COVID-19 year of hell. It is time to get on the aeroplane and fly away. Coming from a Kiwi, where do you reckon I'd be advising you all to go?
West Australia.
There are a few Kiwis in Western Australia. Thank you for telling us about that. No, let's go to Aotearoa, New Zealand. It is only 3 hours across the ocean, and there's some great adventures to be had. I took my husband back to New Zealand a couple of times, and then he said, it's time we actually had a holiday and didn't just meet all your family. Okay, let's have a week in a little unit in Turangi, which, for those of you who don't know, is in the middle of the North Island. Lake Taupo is probably something you've heard about. Great big lake in the middle, and Turangi is just underneath Lake Taupo. It's cold in winter because there's mountains up there with snow on, and this is the middle of the winter that we're there. Of course you go to New Zealand in winter, why not? The summer's not a whole lot different, but don't tell the Kiwis I said that. I'm going to tell you about 3 adventures in New Zealand. A cultural adventure, a Hollywood adventure, and a scary adventure. Let's start with a bit of Hollywood. In fact, in my hometown of Wellington, they call it Wellywood because that is where Hobbiton is based. There's some fabulous stuff to look at about Hobbiton. But we're in the middle of the North Island, not the bottom of the North Island. So we're going to talk about Hobbiton, which is, you know, a few hours drive from where we were in Turangi. Set in farmland, this is the village of the Lord of the Rings adventure book, and it is beautiful. My 6-foot husband looked like he needed to be with the Trolls cave somewhere else, but it was perfect for me because Hobbiton is a short person's place. Those little houses in the side of the hillside were absolutely my height. I felt so at home. But my favourite memory from Hobbiton was most definitely after we'd walked around the village, stopping off at the Green Dragon for a real Green Dragon beer by a real fireplace. The Green Dragon in the movie is literally still there. It's a little pub and it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's sized for all size people, so you don't have to be a miniature like me to enjoy it. We also did a little cultural experience. I'll move that away so you can see me. Thank you. Before we went to New Zealand, I said, Mac, if we're going to New Zealand, there's one thing I want you, Mr. Pākehā, which is a white person in New Zealand, to experience is our Māori culture. It is special. And right around the middle of New Zealand is another place called Rotorua, and they have exceptional cultural experiences put on for all the visitors that come over to New Zealand, but it is well worth seeing for the Australian that doesn't know a whole lot about our wonderful Māori people, our first people of New Zealand. So we did the whole tour, and this is a university for Māori people. You are invited from the different tribes to be part of this university study where you learn carving. At the time they had this enormous tree that had been specially selected and cut with permission, a kauri, which you cannot cut down in New Zealand. By the Māori people, they selected this beautiful log. It was huge, and it should by now, it was being prepared for the Gallipoli anniversary, and they were setting it up over there as part of the Anzac anniversary over the Gallipoli. They were carving this beautiful tree trunk. A whole group of carvers and people learning to carve were all putting the effort into it. There were ladies that we could watch doing their flax weaving, taking those long pieces of grass-like flax and pulling it with a shell to release the fibres that they then weave and plait into beautiful bags or a wichakite for shopping or for putting things in, or just this is the traditional weaving, and of course they wear them on their bodices. Then we went into the meeting house, the marae, and my man, big tall white Australian man, they chose him to be the visitors' chief because you have to have a chief for the visitors, and he was it. So they gave him a few lessons and he got up on stage and they taught him the haka and they taught him how to slap. And they taught him what the movements look like and the facial expressions, very important to look really, really, really mad. You are frightening away the people, and they do it very well. Mac loved that, and it was a beautiful experience which I particularly enjoyed seeing. But by far, the adventure that really is a big memory for me was, we've done what you want to do, dear. I want to take you whitewater rafting. Now, I'm not an adventure girl, all right? You understand this? This is the middle of the winter. There is big hills with snow on them. It is freezing in the morning, and he wants me to go in a little rubber raft with a stick to push off from the rock faces that are up high and black and shiny with water. You're coming down this river that's got steps and rocks jutting out of the water that you may well find yourself landing on. And it's freezing. We did get to put on wetsuits. That was an issue as well. I had never put on a wetsuit before, and I'm not one of those slender scuba diving girls. It was interesting. And a nice polar fleece, and a hat, and gloves, and something on my feet. So you were warm, I have to admit. But the scariness, two of us, there was just two of us on that day, me, Mac, and the bloke giving us orders. So we followed orders, and we went down the river. We're frightened out of our business. Get to the other side. And we get to the other side and row our row. We only had one row each. We made it there, and we pulled into a little beach, and he pulled out a thermos flask with the most delicious hot chocolate, and we each had a little chocolate fish with our hot chocolate. Lovely marshmallow soft chocolatey fish, delicious. And then he'd take us down the rest of the way, and we made it back. What an experience. Not being an adventure girl, not being a throw yourself out of a plane or chuck yourself over a cliff girl. It was a big adventure for me. But I did it. I did it. And at the end of it, I felt, wow. So I thought I'd best bring back the t-shirt to Australia. So you know it's really, really true that I did survive the whitewater rafting at Turangi. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thanks, Linda. Thanks for sharing your adventurous experience. And Lord of the Rings is one of my favorite movies too. I can imagine how beautiful New Zealand is. I would like to visit once. Thank you. So our next speaker for tonight is Rosemary. Rosemary's speech is, Rosemary will be taking a new pathway, engaging humor, level 1. Objective is, it's an icebreaker speech to introduce yourself to the club and overcome any nerves. So please welcome Rosemary on the speech entitled My Journey as Rosemary. Sorry, the timings for the speech is 5 to 6 minutes. Green on 4. 4 to 6 minutes. Green on 4, amber on 5, and red on 6. This will be evaluated by Hiker. Please welcome Rosemary.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, to fellow Toastmasters. My journey begins in Glenbrook. This is a place where I have moved up to start a new relationship. And with all good relationships, I just moved in with the gentleman and took it from there. When I went there, I was expecting to go long bushwalks, have a loving relationship, and the ever long journey to work. Because at the time, I was working in Randwick or Bondi Junction. Now, for those people who don't know, Glenbrook is in the lower Blue Mountains. It's just above Penrith. It's still within the city limits of Sydney. And luckily, I was doing about an hour and a half journey each way. Shows you what love does for you. It takes you to strange places. But that's another story too. While we're there, in the first 6 months, not actually knowing anyone there, a leaflet came through the letterbox. It was this thing called public speaking. And to learn how to do it, and it was for Glenbrook Toastmasters. I said, well, what a good idea. It'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. It'll actually introduce us to new people, plus it may give me confidence. Because for whatever reason, I had gone through one of those crises in life before I met Murray, and I was not very confident. I mean to say, to get up and stand in front of someone or even talk at an interview was like, oh, I just smile and say, yes, that's nice, thank you. So we went along there, we joined, and we had 3 good years with Glenbrook Toastmasters. And by the time we had to move, because Murray had finally got a job in radio, and we had to move to Inverell, I had not only achieved a CTM, which was one of the first acronyms for Competent Toastmaster, which is like the competent communicator of 10 speeches, which is now most probably level 1 or level 2 of pathways. Before I moved away, I became a chartered member of Glenbrook Toastmasters as well. I had married and had 2 children. One was 18 months and the other one was 2.5 months. Luckily, we could afford to take a plane up to Inverell, because I could not imagine a bus trip. Not with 2 young kids. The plane was interesting enough, but I could not have imagined a 12-hour bus trip there. But we spent a year and a half in Inverell before moving down to Griffith, and then we spent 6 years in Griffith. Unfortunately, I had to stop my Toastmastering between Griffith, because, Glenbrook, while we moved from Inverell to Griffith, because I didn't know I didn't know anyone there to babysit kids. And when we were in Griffith, we had my third son. Then Murray got a job over in Nowra, so we came here. I sent him to Nowra Toastmasters, and I first, a few years later I joined, and then I've been here since 2004. And I've had marvellous times being part of the committee, because they came up and asked gently, would you like to be the treasurer? So that led to 14 years on the committee and organising Toastmasters. And by the time my kids have left home, I thought I could become area director. Unfortunately, the first time I stood, I didn't get it. Which was most probably very good, because during that year, my husband became diagnosed with a terminal illness, and he passed away in 2015. And so I didn't stop there. I did actually take on being area director the following year, and just so that to keep myself going and to keep honouring the tradition of Toastmasters of giving, and hope in getting something back as well. And during that time, I've met some incredible people. I've achieved a lot. I've even achieved my DTM, which was amazing. I never thought I would. And it's because of the support that I've had through people at Toastmasters, and it's all part of the learning process. And it's also, they gave me an opportunity to go out and start a uni course as well, because I'm studying a visual culture and a fine arts degree, all online through Curtin University. So these are the things that Toastmasters has given me. It has given me the confidence to actually stand up and talk to people. I can now do the interviews of jobs as well, and I've been able to go out and study again. I often wonder, where would my life be if I hadn't taken up that opportunity of following that leaflet and seeing what it would, where it would lead me. I have had an exciting time, and I look forward to many more years at Toastmasters.
Thanks, Rosemary. I'm feeling much better now. Literally, I was thinking whether the Toastmaster is for me. Should I continue? A couple of minutes back, but thanks for sharing. Our next speaker is Kylie. Kylie's pathway is Leadership Development, Level 4. The purpose of this project is for the member to lead a small team to the completion of a project and to share some aspects of their experience leading the team. The timings for the speech is 5 to 7 minutes. This will be evaluated by Carol. Please welcome Kylie on the speech entitled Leading a Zoom Contest. Leading the Zoom Contest, Kylie.
Thank you, Madam Toastmasters, I guess. My leadership through area contest via Zoom. Can you imagine? Yeah, first time that it's happened, and I had to do it in my first year. So well done me. But I had a wonderful team that I worked with. Now, for those that were there for my second speech on leadership style, I spoke about my leadership style being democratic. And I thought I would just go back to that, because that's usually the person makes the final decisions, but includes the team members in the decision-making process. I also encourage creativity. And when I was thinking about how I'm going to pull this team together and be a good leader, I had to start thinking about the skills that I brought to that the type of leadership that I was is democratic, but also what I've learned over the project of leadership skills. Also looking at people up the ranks of Toastmasters and in the club, about their leadership skills and what I liked and what can I improve on and what can I take from that. So it was a really interesting journey for me. It was a very stressful journey, but it was very interesting. And I'm still here, I survived it. So I pulled together a team. Now I had to have Louise Burns, the Southern Division Director, because she's the Southern Division Director. I had a Zoom host master, Michael Fenton. If you haven't heard of him, he is like the god of Zoom. He knows everything inside and out. He just done a 3-day conference, not a blip. I also pulled in my friend and Toastmaster, Linda, and also a mentor and Toastmaster, and I suppose you could call him a friend, Mac. So I pulled these people together, and I also had to get judges from other clubs, other areas. I also had to organise timers and other roles. Sorry, it's just gone out of my head.
Target speaker.
Thanks, target speaker. So in this, I was able to go, this is what I'm looking for, this is what I want. And it took a very long time to get the target speaker. I think I was 2 weeks out of the evaluation contest happening when someone actually said, hey, I'll do it. And I just had to trust that he knew what he was doing. So over the time, as I was thinking, and it was like, what can we do with this? Because it is the first time, because of COVID, that our contests have been online. And no one had done it before, so we had no idea what we were doing. So it was very much learning on the fly. And by having Zoom meetings with my team, I was able to find out what other people thought and how things could run. We then had test practices, and we thought about the contestants like Megan and Carol and the people from Kiama. How are we going to make this a good experience for the Toastmasters? Because these members have been 20 years and never had to do a Zoom contest online. It's hard enough to get up in front of other people, but to do it online on this little computer and all the things that could go wrong, and I had to think of ways, creativity ways, to come up with solutions. What happens if this happens? What if that goes wrong? What if that person can't get online? So we had to come together as a group. 5 essential leadership skills are communication, creativity, motivation, positivity, and feedback. And I reflected on these when I was looking back over the time that I was pulling my team together, having these conversations about how to make this a great contest, not just for the area, but for the members that were participating. So it was very clear with my team that communication, we have to stay in communication. We had each other's emails, phone numbers, who's going to be doing what. I had, as you saw in one of the other presentations that I've done, I had a whole run sheet, and everybody in the team had that. And it was down to time, it was down to everyone knew what they had to do. The creativity was then having to think about what could go wrong. Does Megan know where her camera sits? We had to get creative, didn't we? And Megan had to put like a table and then a washing basket and then some books, and we'd have it up so she was seen properly, so she had a fair go, and lighting, you know, so we did that. Motivation, trying to motivate the team. Now sometimes that can be hard because people work and they come home and it's like, oh, Toastmasters again, or another Zoom meeting. I mean, we're doing work on Zoom and then we have emails to go through and lots of Zoom stuff. So it was trying to motivate that this is for the benefit of the members that are participating. this is showcasing our Area 30. You know, we want to do a good job. Positivity. Sometimes this was a challenge for me because I would become stressed out. And that was hard because my face apparently shows when I'm stressed out. And some people copped a lot of my facial expressions that I had to go back and apologise for, of course. But I had to try and remain positive because the team needed to remain positive so they could help the people that were going to be doing it. Feedback. I had to realised that I had to give positive feedback at the same time. You know, Mac, yes, you're doing a good job yet again. You know, these things to reinforce that what they're doing on the other side. Now, Mac got really upset because at the last minute, I had to change his role. And in true Mac style, he had a little hissy fit. So I had to say, Bart, you're really, really good at doing this. So yeah, giving feedback. That will help him hopefully next time to go, maybe I'll be more adaptable. So in this leadership, I am still democratic, but I also found out that I've become more coaching as well. So I'm now combining two, and I hope as I continue on my leadership roles that I will continue growing into other realms so that when I do pull other teams together, that it can be just as good as the team that I led this time.
Thanks, Kylie. Thanks for sharing your experience about running a Zoom contest. I was an audience in that Zoom contest, but I never imagined that was such a hard work and effort was involved behind it. Thank you. Now I would like to welcome our first evaluator, Mac, for the speech on A Second Chance by Kim Taylor. Please join in welcoming Mac.
Thank you, Madam Postmaster. I had the pleasure of being the evaluator for Kim on her speech titled A Second Chance. And what an interesting story it was for us all. And I can actually relate to Kim's experience because when I became a city person, as opposed to being raised in the country, a horse that I actually bought in my in the early 80s was a little pony that was also destined for the glue factory, and I fell in love with it. So I know where you're coming from with that story, Kim, and it resonated in my heart. What I noticed during the speech, that throughout the whole of the speech, Kim maintained a great eye presence and presence in front of the whole audience here during the speech, had good use of volume and pitch to enhance the speech and keep us engaged with her. Had a good use of the whole speaking area, which I'm not doing today because we haven't got that time. And also had a well-interested and constructed speech which kept us all entertained. What I noticed was a couple of little things to work on and enhance those speech would be when Kim was not using her hand gestures, at times she slipped back into her old practice of clasping her hands in front of her body at the waist. Now that can be a distraction, especially when you are using your hands to enhance the speech. So one way of getting around that is bring them to your side, because you bring them to the front and people are expecting you to enhance the next gesture. At one stage, using of the floor, I noticed that the speaker came forward and then turned around and was speaking to the back wall here, which made it hard to hear her at that time because the voice is being projected away from us all. So just be aware that when you turn around to head back from the audience, just stop speaking at that time, and that would enhance the speech. Overall, it was a great, interesting speech, well constructed. Great points, good use of voice and pitch, great use of eye contact and hand gestures. Let down by speaking to the wall, grasping the hands, and I'll challenge Kim to work on the next speech of not grasping the hands at all in the speech. Madam Toastmaster.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for such a valuable evaluation. I would like to invite our second evaluator, Rebecca Cooper, on the speech Bubble Blast by Linda. Please welcome.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Linda's speech. She was working on Presentation Mastery, Level 2, Bubble Blast. I love how she came out and she stood here, took a few moments. She had a massive smile, a big smile on her face, and I thought, oh, this will be good. I know that she's going to be really enthusiastic. It's going to be a great story. And then she started off with her rhetorical question to everyone. I can't remember the exact wording of it, but she was basically talking about the travel bubble and where people can travel. I thought that was a great way to engage the whole audience at the start. I was thinking, where is this going? And then she mentioned New Zealand, and I thought, oh yes, there's going to be some great story. It's going to be a good story, this one. Before the speech, Linda asked me to focus on her use of hand gestures, or not so much hand gestures, but body language in general. And what can I say? She absolutely nailed that part of the speech. Everything from her props, the t-shirt, the bottle with the mug from that pub, it was amazing. And the use of her hands throughout the whole speech really enhanced the stories that she was telling. I loved how she used the whole stage. She was doing that little hobbit walk. That was great. Also, the haka, talking about when Mac was learning the haka. Excellent. Just really enhanced the whole speech with your body language, Linda. That was really well done. Linda had great eye contact throughout the room. It was very clear to understand, and she included several little mini stories within her overall story, talking about different experiences in New Zealand with the cultural, the Hollywood experience, and I think the last one was the adventure experience. Loved all the stories. They were very engaging, elements of humour throughout them. A point for improvement for Linda would be the time limit. It did go a little bit over, so I think that may have contributed to the, I found the speech cut off a little bit. I'm not sure if the conclusion could have been a little bit stronger to wrap it all up about the 3 different types of adventures. It sort of ended, and I think that was because the time limit went a bit over. Also, I did notice throughout, well, one instance throughout the speech, she did move the left turn, which was a little bit distracting, but it's a minor thing. Also with the props, the t-shirt and the mug